We ask the right questions. We have the conversations that matter with the people who matter. A radio show designed just for you. Join VOP Roundup weekdays at 7 p.m. on VOP 96.1 FM. Now you have a voice.
Thank you for joining us on VOP Roundup. This is the flagship political and current affairs show on Voice of the People, 96.1 FM Abuja. Right here, we ask the pertinent questions. We have the difficult conversations. We look at the big stories that made their way on the headlines all day. The stories you discussed, you thought about, you have questions, you have contributions. We rub our minds right here on VOP Roundoff. I am Chinwe Blessing. Thank you for joining us. And of course, we do this per usual with our Defolarin Olamileko, in-house analyst of Voice of the People, Abuja, and political economist. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Very good evening to all our listeners out there.
Very good evening to you. How much water have we had today? You know the drill. These days, just answer the questions and let's move on.
Exactly. By 6:45 this evening, I had my water.
It's supposed to be 6. You are there 45 minutes.
Yes.
Wow. That's impressive.
Definitely.
I don't think I can get to 6. I don't think I've ever done a 6 to 6.
You have to try one.
Get to 45. Wow, that's interesting. My love for food will not allow me, yeah? But then that just speaks about how much discipline, the Ramadan teaches us,
Exactly.
discipline, restraint, and all of that. Well, welcome to the program today.
Thanks for having me.
How was the sun?
I think today's sun was not that hot thing.
Towards the evening?
No, not towards the evening. I entered the sun around 2 p.m. this afternoon.
It wasn't as hot.
It wasn't as hot as we normally.
And I was still hot. I was still so
Maybe the
hot.
part of Abuja that I was coming from. There was rain in Kaduna today.
Oh.
Maybe the breeze of Kaduna would have maybe helped us in one way or the other to dice the tension of the Abuja sun.
I know that in the evening, today, we didn't go through so much heat as much as we usually would, but earlier during the day, I was, oh my God. I was just saying before we came on air, the only advantage of this weather is my skin is popping. Am I ready to sacrifice for glowing skin? Yes, I am. How much sacrifice is what I do not know. But let's get into the matters today. Starting Parliament, I think we've been talking a lot about the Parliament lately, so let's deal with the story before we move on to security matters. So the House of Representatives today passed the Student Loans Reenactment Bill for second reading. Now, the bill is titled A Bill to an Act to Repeal the Students' Loans Access to Higher Education Act 2023 and enact the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Bill 2004 to establish the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as a body corporate to receive, manage and invest funds to provide loans to Nigerians for higher education, vocational training and skills acquisition and the related matters. And for related matters, now the House, the leader of the House, Julius Ihomveri, read, he read the bill, and he did lead the debate on the general principles of the bill. And Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, read President Tinubu's letter that was titled Transmission of Student Loans, Access to Higher Education, Repeal Enactment Bill 2024, seeking the nod of the lawmakers to act on the proposed legislation. Now, before, I think we're a little bit familiar with what the student loan bill is about, but just do a breakdown for us about what it is about.
It's quite simple in the sense that the government is looking for opportunity or ways whereby indigent students can have access to loans, they can have access to funding, particularly those ones in higher education, so they can be able to pay their tuition fee and other money that is accrued to them in terms of their hostel accommodation, books, research, as well as some other basic items they will need in school. So it came as a result of the high cost of tuition fee in federal universities as well as state university, whereby students are complaining that they cannot be able to meet up with the rising or incessant increase in tuition fee in the last 3-4 years by Nigerian university, particularly government-owned university, that you can see students now paying up to 200,000, 300,000 as tuition fee in the university. So the current government now think through it and say, okay, we can bring an even balance within this. Let's provide loans for the student. You can get money from government, pay your tuition fee. Then maybe after your graduation, you start paying back those loans, or any other means that you can use to pay. So the key issue is that they want to provide loans for you at a 0% interest free, so that you can be able to go to school, have your higher institution, have your degree, then can also help the economy one way or the other.
Given the mindset of Nigerians, we know how we look at government loans as though they are grants. We already do not have the attitude of always paying back. Do you think that this is a plausible movement? Will the government be able to get their monies back?
Definitely, sincere Nigerian and people with honest heart will definitely pay back. But I'm not sure of, maybe a lot of them may not even want to pay back because excuses that there is no job, they have not gotten a job, they don't have anything doing. So how would they be able to pay back? But I know that sincere Nigerians who will not want government laws to cut up with them in future would definitely pay, because this kind of thing, you can collect the loan. Then in one way you find yourself in politics. Then one way you are trying to contest for election. You can even win the election. Then somebody will not go and bring your file and say, you collected loan from government, you go to school and you never pay back.
Is that really obtainable? How many cases have we seen where people have broken the law in the past?
Blessing, don't. I remember our discussion yesterday. In this way, they can be used against you, because the act that National Assembly is trying to enact now will ensure that it become a law in Nigeria that nobody will be able to oppose.
Which is the question I was asking. How many times have we seen people who have broken the law in the past still end up being high political holders? I don't want to name names, but I mean, this is the House of Assemblies we are talking about. It's not so far-fetched.
Exactly. Maybe by that time, the new generation of people will be in position of authority, will have a rethink of mind, and will be ready to implement the law as expected. So these are the laws that we're having. You get it? And it could also be something that will help us develop our education and develop our human capital, so that develop the economy of Nigeria. But I'm not expecting people who will not be sincere to go for the loans. But I just hope that people who go for the loan will find a way to pay back. But the condition will be there. You must have a job to pay back loans. And although it's also tied to your parental background in terms of how much they are earning. But they are not saying that it's your parent that will pay the loan. Sure. It is you that will pay. But it will subject to you getting a job and paying back. And again, let's quickly remind ourselves, this is not the first time we'll be having such initiative in Nigeria. It has happened before. Then they use your certificate to collect loans from government. If you graduate, you use your certificate to collect loan. You get it? But though it wasn't that rampant, because a lot of Nigerians we don't have much graduate that we have in this dispensation. Then now we are producing close to 300,000-500,000 graduates every year. But then how many people graduate from university or polytechnic in some years back? So that's just the issue.
Well, another question will be, are we sure that this is not going to be another way to siphon public funds? Say, we gave out, 7 billion naira in loans, and they've not been paid back. And maybe these loans were never given in the first place, or maybe these loans were, never paid back, but just never accounted for.
No, the loans will be given. But what we know that have also invested in this kind of thing is that, if we could remember, we have a People's Bank many years ago. We have several intervention banks that government created. But a lot of them become a cesspool of corruption between the public servant that were managing the particular banks or those intervention agencies and the politicians. Now, this one is between the civil servant, the politicians, and the student. I know the student will be very, very careful when it comes to this particular policy, especially the NANS, National Association of Nigerian Students, and other stakeholders within that educational arena, including ASU and ASUP. They will all be interested in this, because it will become something that when students want to collect loan, and the condition that is tied to it, you are applying for the loan, you come through your school, your VC is involved, your dean of students is involved, a lot of cadre of officials from your schools are involved, then your parents are involved, including you yourself. You have to get a sign-in from about 2-3 people within your school environment before you can apply for the loan, before your form can be assessed. So with all this caliber of bureaucracy that is coming in, everybody wants to ensure that there is transparency. But on the part of the budgetary allocation that is coming to these particular agencies, they may not be able to touch the money they are going to be giving to the student. But the one they will use to run themselves or run the organization, the one we call miscellaneous money, you get it? The one they will be using to run the operational cost of the. So that is where the issue is, because they too at the end they will be giving out contract, they will be building site, and don't forget that when government establish agencies like this, before you know it, they will be out of their mandate. Don't be surprised that these agencies that government want to enact in terms of giving loans to, before you know, they will start saying we want to build library for universities, we want to build microfinance bank. They will start going into some areas that the law did not permit. It is through that channel corruption will start. But we just hope that this particular act and the agency that is coming will not indulge in such acts, so that corruption and lack of transparency will not take place.
Let's take other stories, bringing it home and here in the FCT and, in insecurity or insecurity generally. Now, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, is lamenting about the lack of tracking equipment for security agencies, particularly FCT commands of the police. That's the command of the police and the DSS. Now, if you remember, he was in a meeting yesterday with Akpabio and I think Tajuddin was also a part of the meeting, and it was about, the insecurity challenges in Abuja. Well, Wike was talking about the security situation in the nation's capital, and he said, well, the police and the DSS, they don't have tracking equipments, and I have personally been to these the headquarters of these agencies to lend them equipment that they can use in their operations. Now, these are the exact words of Wike. I quote, "It's unfortunate to say this, that mostly the security agencies, in particular, I will say, the police here, are not adequately equipped. In fact, you cannot believe that the police command of the FCT does not even have an ordinary tracking device. You cannot believe that. Not only them, even the FCT command of the Department of State Services do not have any, and the only one they have is at the headquarters. So if there are things to do, they have to go to the headquarters, which is not supposed to be. Luckily, I told Mr. President that, look, we have to do something, and there must be the emergency procurement of this equipment. Now, let's go back in time a little bit, Adefolarin. There was a time that this particular devices, I don't know about Abuja, but I know that in several divisions of the police and the DSS, they had tracking devices to a point that people would meet them, just civilians, everyday Nigerians. If someone steals your phone, you go and meet them and they can be able to track it for you. I think at the time you had to pay 100, 150, 200,000 naira, and then you get it tracked.
Exactly.
What happened to these devices?
Not that anything happened to the devices. Maybe the device has run out of data, it has run out of oil, it has run out of all the chips that is making it to work or function very well. Like the case of the FCT, I could understand why they just have to have it at their headquarters, because most issues, very sensitive issues, sometimes go to the headquarters. Like the one that happened in FCT, that they have to take major decision. It has to be reported, because the director of DSS in FCT cannot just take a whole decision by himself. Even the meeting he had with the minister yesterday, he will have to write a report to the headquarters to fine-tune it, including the police command also do it. But what we are trying to say here is that there is need for us to decentralize some of this equipment. But we also know the challenge that government normally has, the challenge of government bureaucracy, that when this equipment will be given to these people, just take the example of vehicles that have been given to command. At the end of 1 year, those vehicles are now wrecked. You don't even see them as a new vehicle again, because the lack of maintenance will destroy those vehicles. Maybe that is the fear why most agencies don't want to give their command those sensitive equipment. But that should not stop them from doing it, because if they teach them how to ensure maintenance of it, definitely they'll maintain it, and there won't be any challenge.
Who is to be held responsible? Adefolarin, 2.176 trillion supplementary appropriation acts, right? That's the amount of money that was just for security alone. Just for security alone. And we are lacking things as common as trackers. And we know how important trackers are to actually this entire kidnapping situation. I mean, if we cannot protect people from being kidnapped, can we at least ensure that we have the equipment to get them out if they are being kidnapped?
The issue is that the money was the money budgeted for the digitalization of the security architecture of Nigeria, or the technologization. When I mean technology, the input of technology in the fight against insecurity in Nigeria. Were those money meant for it, or the money was meant for allowances, increase in allowances, increase in operational fueling of their vehicle, or just money meant for further training. Because sometimes when we talk about I'm coming, because most times when we talk about budget for security agencies, bulk of that money is going for salaries, allowances, and trainings. They don't take care of those equipment that we are talking about.
Following what trainings? Let's be honest. What trainings? We are still having to deal with interface with most of these individuals every single day. Just a few days back, there was fire in Wuse Market. Why? Simply because some officers could not conduct their business the way that they should have conducted it. Of course, if you look at the situation that happened in Wuse Market, if they had done their due diligence, if they had carried out their operations the way that they should have, we wouldn't have had the situation escalate to the point where we had it.
But
so what trainings are we picking? Are we selecting the kind? Because I know that certain officers are being, but what happens to the ones that are actually doing the actual groundwork?
They all go for trainings at different time, at different period. So if you check most security agencies' budget, the bulk of the money go for their allowances, their salaries, and trainings. The equipment we are talking about, they will tell you that even though the money have been budgeted for it, but it may not be enough. Take for instance, it was just recently the Nigerian Army begin to introduce drone into their fighting of insecurity. And how many of it do they even have? The fighter jet that we're talking about that they are buying. How many of it do we even have? Because most of those technology are not homegrown. But we need to encourage them that to reduce some of this burden of this funding and financial issues on the security architecture, so that we can have value for money. It's for us to also have opportunity for these people to begin to do research on how to produce some of this equipment locally, and it is not difficult. The tracking device that we are talking about is not rocket science. It's not that expensive, but they make it so bogus as if it's very expensive. If you bring 3 best ICT graduates from Nigerian university that claim to have graduated with first class, bring 3 of them out and tell them that this is what we want them to do, they could do it. But do we have the opportunity to bring these people together?
What do you mean opportunity? Is it that we do not have the political will, or we don't have the opportunity? Because these people that you're talking about are sitting in their houses, working for Fortune 500 companies remotely because they couldn't get jobs here.
Exactly. You know why they don't do it? Because the political will of the government to bring this together are not still there. The police that we are talking about that doesn't have tracking devices, police has a department that has to do with technology and ICT. What stopped them from bringing the best brain in ICT together and say, okay, this is what we want you guys to be doing for us? With networking, with server connected to NCC, giving them approval to connect to all these network people, they can do the tracking. What is tracking? It's not that we have a box kept somewhere that will be following people. But no, it's just a network connection.
I happen to be privy to a conversation that was happening today somewhere in some person's business, and they were talking about I think one of the ladies, one of her apprentices had to go to one of the service providers' offices to connect her BVN or her NIN to her. And the people that were complaining, they said this is just utter waste of time and just unnecessary, putting people through unnecessary pressure and suffering, because in the end, you are saying that you want to connect people's phone numbers to their BVN so that you can find them and whatnot in case something happens to them. But how many times have we seen that come to fruition? How many times have we seen the government or security agencies take advantage of your BVN and your phone number to track people that are being kidnapped?
They use those instruments, but we have to tell ourselves the truth. When it comes to poor people cases, they are not interested. But like the Kaduna case that we may talk about, the kidnapping of those children, they will use those technology for those guys, and they will know where they are. Have you forgotten in this same country when the first kidnapping of the train guy, the people that were not the train, the Kankara students that were kidnapped in Zamfara, they locate where they are. But what was the excuse that they cannot go into? They said because they have used human shade to cover themselves. They have used the victim to cover themselves, so there is no way they can begin to throw bomb at them. So they have all this technology. It's not that they will build one server somewhere. No, the server is already available. It's already in the space. It's just for us to tap into it. But what we are saying here is that with all the things that a Wike want to do for the police, FCT command, and the DSS, it should just look inward. You don't need to waste the money. The billions of naira that they ask you that they are selling one gadget. So don't go over. Just look for 3 best or 10 best ICT students that graduated in Nigeria in the last 3-4 years. I'm talking of people who read computer, serious computer ICT technology they will do this thing for you for free.
Now, you see, the thing is, looking further into the story, you would find out Wike is saying, "Oh, the president is saying we're going to get our own drones to help. We're going to purchase this, purchase that." Doesn't this start to sound a lot like another room for money to be siphoned?
That is what happened in government circle. When government said they were going to do this, people will start. There's one security company there will make the provision. Everybody will begin to make contact. Even as the minister said this, is it yesterday or different? They made this statement. A lot of people, there's one security analyst that is talking somewhere. We can get it. He has a company can help us to quickly procure from China, from Tunisia, from. That is what will be happening. But meanwhile, here in Nigeria, we have the guys that can do it. Simply, even with their phone, they can get this thing done. But the issue is that is the government ready? But because of the procurement aspect, whereby money will change hand, nobody is ready. Now, let me quickly. The Ministry of Defense Headquarters has a research review that have been into research, into security and others. These guys can do this thing. We have Nigerian space agencies. They can do it. We have NCC. They have collaboration with all the network providers. Very simple. The space agency are what they call in the space as a camera that can do a video of the entire Nigerian landscape. Although it was meant for agricultural purposes and irrigation, but you can still get those pictorial of anywhere in this country. But what are they waiting for? They have left them so that they can just, their equipment will be wasting. They want to go and procure one drone or procure one gadget. They won't call one Igbo to come and fix it here, and they begin to charge us some billions. Meanwhile, we have boys, young men, that can use their brain to put all this. With this 3 laptop in my phone, they will do this thing coordinatedly, and you will see the live pictures of wherever anybody is kidnapped.
No, probably not these exact systems, but then we get the point.
No, they are the one. What is the year?
Oh, no, trust me, no.
No, the only thing they will change here is to change the application that is on it.
No, trust me, they will change a lot more than that. The CPU might not be able to carry that much. It's. I have a little bit of. It's not exact. We could easily just ask our IT guy here.
Somebody is laughing behind us.
Of course. There are certain things that these systems will not do. But then I understand your point. Of course, it wouldn't be as difficult. We have very talented people in the country. It was very ridiculous last week where we had, the Commissioner of Police of, I want to know exactly where, I think Abuja, Lagos, or Port Harcourt, one of 3, had confirmed and say, and he was so excited and saying, oh my God, not really excited, but, they were all, they displayed AK-47s and some shotguns and pistols that were handcrafted, and they were like, look at the fine architecture of this. And I'm like, let's be honest. We actually know that there are Nigerians that can actually develop this. What are we doing with these people? What are we actually doing to say, we're going to pick these people right out of school? And in Jos, I remember growing up, you'd hear rumors about schools like Butex. Not just rumors. They actually did know how to make, this type of local guns and whatnot. What are we doing to say, bring these people in? Let's give them the training that they deserve. Let's give them proper training. Let them come and make these things at home. And then we can see how, instead of us to keep importing ammunition and arms from other countries or other parts of the world, we could do that for ourselves over here. But no, we're thinking about how to make money off of government and padding budgets left, right, and center, which is what has become the order of the day, and it can be very, very sad when you sit down to think about it. Meanwhile, you can join the conversation 0700 010 961 961. That's the number to call. Now, let's look at another story in security. Now, the gunmen that kidnapped 286 students and staff in Kaduna have demanded 1 billion naira for their release. Let's take a moment and take that figure in. You see, beyond the fact is the audacity that trips me a lot. The audacity of a criminal to actually dictate. And why would their audacity be that loud? It's because they have been given room to believe that, there's nothing that can be done to them. Now, the school children and other older students there and members of staff that were taking, I think, on the 7th? On the 7th of March in Kuriga in northwest Kaduna State, was the first mass kidnapping in the country since 2021.
Exactly.
Right? Now, they made a total of 1 billion naira ransom demand for all the students and staff of the school. Now, they gave an ultimatum to pay the ransom within 20 days, effective from the date of kidnap. So they have till the 27th. of March. To pay that money, they said they will kill all the students and the staff if the ransom demand is not met. Now, Idris Ibrahim, who is an elected official from Kuriga Ward Municipal Council, confirmed the ransom demand, and these were his words. Yes, the kidnappers called the community through Jibril Aminu's number and made the demand. They called from a hidden number, but the authorities are working on getting the number. He added that the security forces were taking adequate measures to secure the release of these children. Now, the spokesperson for the president and the army did not respond to requests for comments, and we're going to talk about that and possible reasons why they wouldn't update the Nigerian people on what they are doing on their own end. Now, he said the president has directed that the security agencies must, as a matter of urgency, ensure that the children and all those that have been kidnapped are brought back to safely to the country, and also in the process ensure that not a dime is paid for ransom. Your thoughts?
I think clear as a statesman and from the Nigerian state, that is the best statement that could ever come from the president. No need for anybody to pay ransom. But that is one side. The other aspect is this: what about the family? Because one thing we should understand about these kidnappers is this: they are working psychologically on the parent of the children. Now, get how they got in contact with the people in the village. They call through a particular number, and that person relates the information to them. How did they get the person number?
I mean, it could be from any of the staff.
They
kidnapped them
and they asked him to give them the number. Now, government is not paying ransom. Kaduna State government has said
government says they are not paying ransom.
Federal government says that. Now, the kidnappers will put pressure through that same phone number on the parent. Psychologically, as we are speaking right now, there will be an underground contribution by the villagers towards that, because it happens when these Kaduna rail victim too, when they were kidnapped. It happened severally. The government declared that they are not going to pay. The family will be put pressure, and somebody will be doing is it crowdfunding or whatever, yes, or whatever. They'll begin to do it. But the question still remains that with all this that is happening, this is almost like a week now, because it was last week Thursday it happened. Any clue? Although I understand why the government doesn't want to speak to the press on this issue, because they are also being very, very sensitive, because most of the things we are even discussing, as government is saying they are not paying ransom, don't be surprised that in 2 days time the kidnappers will come with another statement that said we are reducing it to 10 days. The government want to be adamant, they don't want to pay. You get it? It was the same kidnapper that said they want 1 trillion. I'll be worth about, now they are reduced to 1 billion. They also said they want 40 Elon's vehicle, how many machine and the rest of them. But what I'm trying to point out is this: in as much as government have said they are not going to pay, whatever action that government wants to take, it must take it drastically, and it must not spare the kidnappers. That is just my own message. But for the families, they will be psychologically depressed.
How can we trust that the government is actually going to take the right measures to and not pay the ransom, considering that the last time that something like that happened, we saw that the government actually did. I mean, we heard rumors that ransoms were paid. The family of Naziba, the one that was
that one was crowdfunding now.
No, besides the crowd, but I mean, the government said nothing was going to. The military came out and said, "Oh, we've rescued them." That was what the military said. But the members of the family said, "Well, we paid."
And because they gave the money to the negotiator. That's what they did. They gave the money to the negotiator to go and drop. And when they were about to drop the children, they dropped the children where they can find them. Then the military came and picked them. But what we are trying to point out, on the perspective of the government, they are not going to give anybody money. But as I said earlier, the family will be under pressure to raise the money. And somebody will be out there in that community raising the high tension in that place. That, let us do this, because that is how it happens. You get it? And they will contribute the money.
What then should Nigerians do when their loved ones are being taken? Because in the first place, they shouldn't even be taken.
That's the ideal thing to do. Get the money to them and give them. But what the money normally encourages is that, distance from now, they will come back again.
I don't think it's even the ideal thing to do. The ideal thing to do is to be safe in the first place. The ideal thing to do is not to negotiate with terrorists or criminals. That is the ideal thing to do. You cannot encourage this as a trade, because now, I mean, look at it. Kidnapping has become a it's beyond a trend. It's like the hottest business now in town.
Definitely.
They are so brazen to ask for 1 billion naira.
And would they get it? I doubt if they can get that kind of money. Even the community cannot raise such money.
It's the fact that they have the audacity to ask for
But
it in
you
the
know,
first
you-
place.
but-
Why are children, and this is the question I believe that Nigerians should be asking, why are children not safe enough to go to school? Why is it that teachers are not safe enough to be... There was a time in Nigeria between 2009 to 2021. The question was, why are we not safe enough to go without being worried about losing our lives?
Definitely.
Now, the question is, why are we not safe enough to go without being kidnapped?
Because the responsibility that lies with the government is not being taken care of as expected. Ask us, how many security personnel do we have? More than half of them is taking care of the VIPs. You get it? More than half of them is taking care of the VIP. So why should it be so? Why should a VIP have close to 8-10 policemen following him up and down? Meanwhile, a community that is isolated because of the terrain,
none.
they don't have police posts, they don't have military checkpoints, they don't have anything to guide them. Meanwhile, we have junk of policemen following VIP, including private citizens who also pay money to have them.
VIPs, no, you're the one that said they are VIPs.
Yes, now they call themselves VIP because it's a department that their police created.
They have a whole department
Created for that. You paid and you'll be taking care of.
Updates on this story, by the way. Now the military headquarters, of the Nigerian headquarters, the Nigerian Army headquarters actually said that the kidnapping of these students last week was to use soft targets as human shields.
Definitely.
And to prevent further air and land offensive against them. Right? Now, this was said by the Director of Defense and Media Operations, and that's Major General Edward Buba. He made this known today. Right, and he pointed out that there has been a lot of pressure that they've been putting on these kidnappers and bandits that are in hiding. So they're practically trying to use these kids and their teachers as human shields. Let me quickly quote him, and then we'll go on with comments. He said, "We have depleted their ranks, neutralized many of their commanders and foot soldiers. The terrorists exhibited gross cowardice by going after children." And in my head, I'm like, you really think that terrorists care about cowardice or bravery? We have taken their commanders out. We recently acquired new air platforms to further decimate them. They know we mean business. It is to protect themselves that they went after these students. But we will not rest until all the kidnapped victims are rescued. Now, Buba went on to say, as in every war, there are complexities, and ours is no exception. Recently, cases of citizens being abducted in the northeast, northwest, and north central theaters of operations were recorded. These citizens were abducted by a brutal and blood-tasty group that should only be addressed as terrorists and not bandits. I repeat, terrorists and not a bandit. Some people are of the opinion that they are just using this to chase clout. It's like, oh, now you've seen that they've done this, instead of admitting that there is a leak, there is a hole. And kidnapping is becoming a thing more than banditry. You're trying to say, oh, it's because of the amount of pressure that you've put on them that they are becoming kidnappers. No,
the issue is they are terrorists from the beginning. Government have designated them to be terrorists. It is we in the media and other space that are still calling them bandits. They are not bandits. Even the law and the Terrorist Act has already established that they are terrorists. If you remember how they transform from Boko Haram members from insurgents Boko Haram members to bandits, then later they went back to terrorism, and their act particularly is now what? Terrorists. It's not just bandits as we normally put them in papers or the way we pronounce them. But for the army to also let us understand that what they are doing is a good one, but there are strategic ways to get this human shade cover and still get the target. They can do it. I don't know whether I get it. My question is why we had to get to a point where, innocent civilians are being used as human shields in this war before, they're being neutralized. If we want to fight this, I believe that it is not, I believe that the Nigerian army is not incapable of actually taking care of this. I mean, this is the same Nigerian army that that we export to neighboring African countries to help them fight their wars. And you're trying to tell me that for decades we've not been able to tackle this issue amongst ourselves? These are people that came into our borders. It's because of the interest that is playing out. How the interest has been dealt with. What I mean by the interest, I mean the stakeholders within this environment have been dealt with, people who doesn't want this thing to go away because of the entrepreneurship or in conflict interest that comes in, it have been dealt with. And with this one that is coming up, we just hope that they have the heart to deal with them, particularly this kidnapping of school children will be done with once and for all, and that will be an end to it.
Well, I do hope that kidnapping generally is dealt with, and not just the Kaduna situation. I hope that it's all of it. Let's take our final story before we call it a wrap on the show. Now, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs, this is away from security now, just purely politics, Senator Yemi Adara Modu, APC Ekiti South, tackled the People's Democratic Party for calling for the resignation of President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, because of the claim of 3.7 trillion naira budget padding allegations against the suspended Senator Abdul Ningi, PDP, Bauchi. Very funny how we saw this coming and we discussed it just yesterday. But Nigerian politics is becoming so predictable.
Definitely, because of the interest that play in it, and the interest is about what comes to me, what goes to you. Whether we are balancing it or we are upscaling my own, your own is lower, my own, or you get it. What I'm trying to point out is that because of the sharing formula that is happening in terms of the resource of the state, all the political gladiators are looking for opportunity to just accumulate. The people calling for Akpabio to be sacked or to come down as a Senate president, what are they interested? What is their interest? He was
warned a few days ago by a member of plenary, and he said, people are here, they're scheming to take your job, be careful.
Definitely, and he was warned. Now people are now coming out to say you have to step down. But the question to ask is that with all these challenges within the Senate, particularly because of the budget padding, how are they going to come out of it? Come out of it in the sense that when next budget comes in, we'll not hear this kind of story. But for Nigerians, this has always been part and parcel of our budget process. It has always been this padding. And we must understand one thing. The padding particularly that normally exposes itself is the one that goes to the National Assembly, particularly the ones that belongs to them. But the one that the MDAs are doing, nobody focus on that.
No, but I mean, to be fair, we spent a large part of last year, focusing on the MDAs and the corruption that goes on in there. In fact, that was even when they started to point fingers at the plenaries and say, all these committees that are coming after the MDAs, most of them are using it as a get-rich-quick scheme because, I mean, if you don't comply, they will come after you. Definitely. So, of course, saying that, I just feel like saying that nobody is looking at the MDAs, that's not very, very fair.
They are not looking at them. And the biggest of the biggest padding is there. Repetition of budget item, we are buying ambulance, we are buying bucket, we are buying computer, we are buying e-loss, we are buying this. It's always repeated in those budgets. But nobody's complaining about that one. But what I'm trying to point out, we must always look at all the budget outline thoroughly. The one going for constituency project, the one going to the MDAs, either their capital or recurrent expenditure, even the presidency, we must look at it thoroughly. And that will only be the way we can ensure the transparency. You have been an advocate of putting pressure to show transparency and accountability, and that's the only way I see that we can get to that level.
I don't believe there's one way to a market. I believe that we can do as much as we can and would be able to deal with the issues at hand. Again, I believe that Nigerians have to call for transparency on every level, not just the plenaries. I mean, we need accountability even from our military and security agencies. Definitely. And also, ministers as well, especially the minister of the FCT saying you need to procure and buy drones in order to fight kidnapping. It's not about saying what we will do, it's about what we're going to do and how effective it is. I mean, you wouldn't argue with the fact that Nigerian politicians are very good, especially this administration. They are seeming to be very good at campaigning and running for office than running the office, because they've been doing a lot of campaigning even after they've won the elections, and that is not what Nigerians need.
That they will tell you that is still part of politics. But what we are interested in is governance and development, so that we can have dividends for democracy, we can have value for money that we've been budgeting for. And a quick one at the issue of buying equipment for the police, for the DSS is this. I will still go back to what I said earlier. We should not go abroad for some of these things. We can have them provided here in Nigeria. And that is the simplest means to save a lot of resources that have been wasted. Because one thing that I've noticed is that in the defense and security procurement environment, people are enjoying. They could also even be praying that this war against bandits, being kidnappers, should continue, so that their procurement files and procurement budgetary can continue. But that has to stop, and that's what we are calling for. In a way that let us look back home and see how we can engage our people who have the intelligence, the knowledge to bring some of these solutions. Particularly tracking device is not a rocket science. It can be produced here in Nigeria. It can be manufactured here in Nigeria with simple technology, use of ICT and network provider. That's just it.
Thank you very much for your input today. Any
me.
final words to the Nigerian people generally?
Let us just live peacefully and hope that we all show love for one another.
No Nigerian is bigger than any Nigerian. I say this all the no Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian until we demand the amount of the type of governance that we think we deserve. We're going to continue to get the one that is being handed to us. It's not rocket science. And stay vigilant. Look out for yourself and your community. Trust me, your safety is first your responsibility before anybody else. Let's not have to crowdfund for you. God forbid that happens, but be vigilant and look out for you. My name is Chinwe Blessed. Stay tuned for more of our programming, and tomorrow we will take another episode of VOP Roundoff. Good evening.